Having a son that is gay, it is not a curse, but it is a blessing because every child in this world is a blessing and it is not a disease. So if I am going to reject this kid, that does make me less of a parent. Does that make me a good parent?
As you can tell and have already known, I'm part of the LGBT community, and for me, my experiences within the LGBT community has not been so well through the recent years. Comparing the LGBT community from way back to now, from what I've seen, it's not really a community about acceptance, equality, nor even peace. But from what I have seen, it's more like a, let's say, not safe for work or safe for children type of community.
I have already faced a lot of circumstances in my life, but protecting my kid is 100% of my responsibility and it's my desire.
Maligayang pagsubaybay po sa isa na namang makabuluhang talakayan kung saan ang magkakasalungat na pananaw ay ating pagtutuusin at kayo na po ang bahalang humusga kung sino ba ang dapat na paniwalaan. Ang paksa na ating tatalakayin ngayon ay kung ang iyong anak o kamag-anak, kahilala, kaibigan ay umamin sa iyo na siya ay isang miyembro ng LGBT plus community. Tatanggapin mo ba siya o itatakwil? Bago ko ipahilala ang ating guest, ako po si Armando Bibay at ito po ang Unbiased. Ang una kong ipapahilala ay isang feminist, aspiring runway model, artist, lawyer, and author. At siya ay naniniwala na kailangang tanggapin ng isang magulang ang kanyang anak kung anuman ang sa tingin niya na tunay niyang kasarian. Yan ay walang iba, kundi si Miss Kate.
Hello everybody, my name is Kate Lian Sage Gumaha and I'm from North Cotabato. I am one of the Metro Runway Philippine models and I am also going to publish my book that's entitled as Oh Had I Never Tasted, and I hope you're all having a great day.
Alright, maraming salamat ho. Ang susunod ko namang ipapakilala ay isang aspiring fashion model. Animator. Siya ngayon ay nagtatrabaho bilang isang barista sa isang local coffee shop. Okay? At naniniwala sa kahalagahan ng pagkahapantay-pantay ng mga tao. Ngunit, para sa kanya, hindi niya matatanggap kung ang kanyang magiging anak ay magiging isang miyembro ng LGBT plus community. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Phoebe.
Hello po, I'm Phoebe Dorado from San Pablo City, Laguna. A local cosplayer and soon to be fashion model. Hello.
Alright, hindi na natin patatagalin. Miss Kate, the floor is yours.
Okay. Now, when we're talking about accepting our children or our child as someone who just came out gay, well, we're talking about the unconditional love that we are going to give as parents, especially knowing the fact that when we're talking about unconditional love, it's about being non-negotiable when it comes to the love that you have towards your children or towards your kid. And love isn't just based on conformity. We do not conform just because the society tells us to. And the fact that when we're talking about true love, it persists despite the judgments of the society, despite, all those standards that the society is telling the people that they should be this and that. And just by simply not focusing on the judgments of those people, we are making our children feel safe because we are the parents. And as parents, our responsibilities focus more on when it comes to giving that love that they deserve. That's why when it comes to conformities, when it comes to the lifestyle, identity, their career, and what more when it comes to them coming out as who and what they are, it is our duty as parents to make them feel accepted. Because as parents, it is not the world's responsibility. They are not the world's responsibility, but it is our responsibility to suffice them with their needs. And, having a son that is gay, it is not a curse, but it is a blessing. Because every child in this world is a blessing, and it is not a disease. And when we're talking about this, why should sexual orientation be different, right? The fact that when it comes to, having children like this, if we expect them, and people often like call them not normal, but it's not that they are no normal. The thing here is it's the society telling them that they are not normal, but we as parents, we should not make them feel that, knowing the fact that in this modern world, even back in those times or years ago, LGBTQ are already suffering, and having your child as part of that community, of course, you do not want that coming from you as a parent, right? And when we're talking about this, okay, I have a child that is gay. Let's just say, for example. So if I am going to reject this kid, that does make me less of a parent. Does not make me a good parent. But the thing here is, if you're going to ask yourself, it's not about you, it's about your child. Because your life is different, the journey that you had is different. And rejection, it causes irreparable
Okay, time is
harm.
up. Mr. Phoebe, for cross-examination, you have 2 minutes.
Right. As for me naman, if you're really a parent and you're willing, and your responsibility as a parent is to love, care, and of course, cherish your child, it doesn't have to just mean unconditional or conditional. If anything, within the responsibilities of the parent is protecting, diba? What if that accepting that child would mean endangering that child as well? What would you do until then?
Well, we are talking about what's not happening yet. And of course, as a parent, we are preparing ourselves as a parent and we know our responsibilities, and this is to protect our kids. And what it comes to protection, we do not just, protect them from the society just because of the possibilities. So instead of like focusing on the possibilities that are negative, so since they're still growing, we must practice ever since, like, let's just say, for example, they are
Okay,
still.
time is up for your answer. Another question.
As we all know from kids of this generation, they are really rebellious, whether they are adolescents or under the age of 18. Would really talking to them or even accepting them would make a difference when, even if you say you don't accept them, they would do it either way? Would it really matter?
Of course it matters, because number one, you must build trust with your children or with your child. And if you build a trust with the child, of course you are going to inculcate something in their hearts that will make them feel that they're normal, and at the same time there's nothing wrong with them. So when it comes to rebelling, it's a choice, but when it comes to rebellion, there's a possible reason why. And that's the thing that we need to avoid. Enable for our kids not to rebel, we must also give them the trust that they need. And at the same time, we must teach them how to protect
Okay, time is
themselves.
up.
Another thing, kids tend to be rather advantageous, or they take advantage of the kindness of other people, especially the parents, whether they are too patient with the child or they spoil the child too much. What if that spoiling or accepting, as well as whether like leaving your child, parang sinasabi mo bahala ka na, would endanger them again? Or
Accepting is actually not spoiling. Accepting is all about you accept your child as this identity that they identify themselves as. But when it comes to spoiling, there's a different story about that, because when you spoil your kid, especially when it comes to acting differently or acting negatively, that is spoiling in a negative way. But if you're spoiling your kid with love and you're not tolerating them when it comes to bad behavior, that is a different story. And I believe that if we focus more on when it comes to teaching them than
Okay, time is up.
tolerating them, then that's it.
what if that child identifies as something that isn't, let's say, socially accepted or morally wrong per se? I'm not saying lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgenders are wrong,
Of
but as
course.
for a certain type of sexuality that was given or even created these recent years as the community has extended, what would you do if your child identifies as something that you really don't accept?
Actually, rejection or making your feel kid that they're wrong is actually also something that is morally wrong. So if you are going to make your child feel that they're unaccepted, that also affects your moral compass. And again, it's not about the society, it's about how you make your feel kid, how your kid, how you make your feel kid, what how you make your kid feel. And I think that's what matters the most
Hi,
at the
time's up.
society.
No more questions po.
Okay. Round one for you.
Alright. As you can tell and have already known, I'm part of the LGBT community, and for me, my experiences within the LGBT community has not been so well through the recent years. Comparing the LGBT community from way back to now, from what I've seen, it's not really a community about acceptance, equality, nor even peace. But from what I have seen, it's more like a, let's say, not safe for work or safe for children type of community. Because from what I have seen, there has been tons of indecency, in public indecency, fetishes, and kinks involved within. Such as, I'm not saying every furry, but there are certain furries within the community that show that they aren't safe for children. And another thing, from the other behaviors of with the LGBT community members, from what I've seen, they really do not talk, ano, how do you say, they really do not conform to the moral law or really safe for the children to be seen, or even as they may have been, or they will influence the child in many ways, more than one, whether good or bad, they will influence the child. And yeah.
Does that mean that when the people here in the LGBT community, when they influence the child, it's a bad thing just because they're gay or just because they're part of the community? Because since you've mentioned that there's nothing wrong with being a gay, being a lesbian, or being part of the LGBTQ community, then why is it that still an issue for you when a kid is being influenced by them? When we all know for a fact that not all in the LGBTQ community are bad people. Instead, they are misunderstood. So, what is it really, Mr. PB?
For me, as like I've said from experience, the LGBT community has really not been safe for children. There has been types of, let's say, grooming, pedophilia, as well as many other reasons on why I think a child under the age of 18 should not be within the community. As well as, since because of the emotional maturity of the child being under 18, they really should not be in a position to be held responsible or in a place where maturity is more important than
Okay, time's up.
anything.
Of course, that is understandable. But you do believe and you are aware, right, that when it comes to sexual abuse and even disrespect, all genders actually experience those. So, I think when it comes to that kind of circumstance or the circumstances in connection with that, it is your responsibility to protect your kid, right? And in ways, how are you going to protect your child, but at the same time being realistic of how the world works, but not going to make your child feel like they're wrong.
Rejecting a child or rejecting our child or not accepting a child doesn't have to mean you're abusing them or blatantly rejecting them. You also have to give the reason out to your child so that they may understand and not just think that they are wrong. Of course, a child will not understand, but at the end of the day, they would, as because their brain has not been fully developed yet, as they are under 18. It is a child. They are immature and irresponsible. So, with that,
Okay, time is up.
However, psychology and science says that there's nothing wrong and it is not a disease that you are a gay or you are a lesbian, that you do not need a medicine when it comes to having that kind of identity. And in fact, if I am going to also enlighten you with your point, when it comes to like being gay and also being a lesbian, well, I do understand your point. But the thing here is, there are many things to consider as well. Since you've mentioned that it's you about protecting them, and at the same time, when you're rejecting them, it's not also, like limiting them or not making them feel like you own them as a kid. But the thing here is, you are a parent, and do you know when you reject them, most of the LGBTQ people, they are also like aside from being rejected, they are also being disowned by their parents or by their own family. And rejection leads to irreparable harm. So, what are you going to do with
Okay,
that?
time is up for cross-examination. Okay, so round 2 for you.
Okay. Now, going back, well, when it comes to rejecting your kid who turned out to be gay, well, rejection really leads to an irreparable harm because, study says that when you are going to show rejection or an acceptance, especially towards your kid that is part of the LGBTQ youth, there are 8 times more likely, or these people in this community, they are more likely to attempt suicide. And it leads to anxiety, depression, drug abuse, and homelessness. This is not about your preferences or not about our preferences as a parent, but this is about your child's life and death consequences or the outcomes of, if you're going to reject your kid and if you're not going to make them choose, or if you are not going to let them live their own lives. Because I think what the children need, they just need guidance, they just need love, they just need support, and that's it. But when it comes to their identity, when it comes to their existence, it's their life. And as parents, we need to give them the proper knowledge also when it comes to surviving this world, because it is indeed true that what's happening in this world, it's not controlled by any of us. But aside from that, we must also show them how reality works. But at the same time, we show them how we work with reality. And I think that's our responsibility as a parent. We don't limit them, we don't tolerate them, but we show them what they must do that is right and that does not limit other people's rights as well. And at the same time, them not judging or not stepping on others' rights or the existence of others. Because I think that's the most important thing. It's your action that you are going to give out to the world. It's not about your existence, because who cares? Who cares? It's really about you not surviving but living your life at the end of the day. I think that's it.
You said rejection leads to disownment, homelessness, or even suicide. But rejection doesn't really mean you have to disown the child or leave the child alone. But rather, by rejecting the child, you can also teach them how to use how to live life, but within the limitations of your own house rules or rules as a parent. So what then?
But that's low key disowning as well, because the one that you're rejecting is the identity of your kid, and that's your kid. And your identity is also as a parent's kid. And the thing here is knowing you as a parent, instead of like rejecting their identity or not them, but still it's the same thing, you must show them the support and the love that they need, because that's what the children need the most. And knowing the fact that society, not most of the society accept.
Okay, time is up.
rejecting the rejecting the sexual orientation or wait, rejecting the sexual orientation of the child doesn't mean I'm rejecting them as my son or my daughter, but rather I'm just rejecting their choice in the matter. As from what I see and what I can tell from a child, they are not ready for the responsibilities or or the maturity level that will come with them being part of the community.
Of course, because you as a parent, you're not allowing them to live their life first. How are you going to know if you are not giving them the chance to also express themselves and to also, to also not blend, but, just accepting that they have their own lives and that we have our lives as well as a parent, but the life that they are going to create is on their own hands. We are only here to guide them when it comes to the future that they deserve. I
Okay,
think
time's
that's
up.
it.
Life and even other parents, from what I can see, have given rules to their children, not just because they are, you can see them as abusive, controlling, or anything, but they have reasons on why they entrust the rules onto the child so that they may guide them as well. And for example, freedom. A 6-year-old child, would you give them freedom? No, of course you wouldn't, because if a 6-year-old child was left in the world all alone with their own life, of course they would be in danger.
But let me also tell you this. From that point, it is unrealistic because, of course, that is a 6 year old. But we are talking about someone who turned out to be gay or who identified himself or themselves as gay. So that's a different story. And if it's a child, of course, going back again, it's really your responsibility as a parent. And a 6 year old child, of course, they couldn't defend themselves. So, in terms of the sexual predators or those people that you are scared of course,
Okay,
you.
time is up.
So if that's an unrealistic expectation or imagination of mine, what if a 16-year-old or even an 18-year-old child were to, let's say, go within the community, Discord community, Reddit community, and join a server full of gay people, and they have been influenced badly by other people. For example, be sent nudes, be forced to, be blackmailed for an
Okay, time is
example.
up for cross-examination. So, another 3 minutes for your second round.
All right. Going back to emotional maturity, unang-una, ang definition ng child, based from the Oxford Dictionary, a child is a person below the age of maturity of or an immature or irresponsible person. Base pa lang dito, hindi ko itatanggap ang anak ko bilang parte ng LGBT dahil lamang sa immaturity sa isang bata, dahil sa daming-daming kayang mapagdaanan ng bata na hindi man karapat-dapat para sa kanyang edad. Doon pa lang sa definition, a child wouldn't be able to tell the right or wrong choices of whether someone is a bad influence or not. And even if you were willing to guide them, there's no guarantee that the child would listen to you or not. And yeah, done.
First off, I want to say that I do understand your point, but the thing here is if I'm going to ask you, well, as someone who is part of the community, because you also, as part of the community, would you have wanted, just in case, your parents to reject you as well? And if not, why argue that it's okay for others? It's okay for others.
For me, I believe the choice of my parents rejecting me being gay is a really good choice for me as a person, honestly. Because I have avoided, from them rejecting me, I have avoided groomers and other pedophiles from the time that I came out. When I rebelled against them and came out as gay and even become openly gay, I was still attacked by groomers, pedophiles, and other nefarious types of
Okay, time
people.
is up.
I'm really sorry that that's what happened to you. First off, I also just wanted to say that even though I was straight before, I was an asexual. So I never really got interested when it comes to both genders. I was also sexually abused. And sadly, by someone who's part of the household. That's one thing that I want to share. So I think when it comes to sexual abuses, it really don't mean that when you're gay, that when you're lesbian, then you're open to sexual abuses. Because again, sexual abuse is a choice by those predators. And I think as a parent, we need to protect them. How are we going to protect them though? We are going to protect them that if a little kid, of course, they feel
Excuse me, Miss Kate.
uncomfortable or
Do you still have any questions for Phoebe?
I no longer have
Okay,
questions.
so 3 minutes for your third round.
Okay, now when it comes to my point as well as someone who's a lesbian. And when we're talking about, this thing, acceptance, this word acceptance, it preserves the family bond. Now, why is this important? This is important because if you really care about your child at the same time, you being as a parent, it's not just about the possibilities that we overthink all the time, but if we are going to teach our kids how to live their life and at the same time how to spread their wings without changing themselves, I think that is the most important thing that we should do, or our role as a parent. And an accepting home is what a child needs. And I think we as a parent, we must be a healing space for them, not someone that makes them feel like there's something wrong with them and that there's something to be cured in them, just because we thought that they're really not, not really normal, just because they're not part of they don't identify themselves directly as a straight person. And a gay son who is accepted more is likely to become successful and stay connected and contribute positively to the family and society, because it's really how we manage. It's the upbringings that we inject to the kid that influences him, or what they use as their pronouns that they have. It's really our upbringings that influence them as a person. And I think that's it. That's it.
Okay. 2 minutes for cross-examination.
As from as from what I've said a while ago, again, rejection really doesn't mean you have to disown the child, or you're really rejecting the person itself. You're just rejecting the idea. So, if anything, if my child is has come out as gay, I'm just rejecting their choice within the matter until they are more ready or emotionally more mature within the spectrum. That doesn't mean that I'm rejecting them as my own child or anything. I would still love them whether they are gay or not. But for the time being, I would not
Mr.
accept
Phoebe,
them.
do you have an actual question for Miss Kate?
Yes po, wait lang.
Okay.
But for the time being, I would not want them to be within the community, because from what I've seen, again, there's really a lot of indecency. And again, if the community were to change, would if the community were to stay as a bad influence, or whether improve badly, would you still accept your child if the community turns out to be bad, or whether they have become a bad influence to not just one child, my child, your child, but every child in the world?
I think you just got your answer, because the thing here is the world is flawed already. And when it comes to people, every person, not just in the LGBTQ community, but all of us as humans, we are imperfect. So that doesn't mean that if you belong to the LGBTQ community, you're already a bad person or you're already a perfect person. And that doesn't also mean that if you're a straight person, then you are already perfect just because you think that you're normal. So when it comes to that, of
Okay, time is
course,
up.
Another thing you said a while ago, that by rejecting the child, you said you're making the child feel like they have a disease, or they need to be cured. That they need to be, how you say, be part of a straight community, because they don't feel like they are within the community that they bring them in. That doesn't really mean that I have to. For you, how would you make them feel like they are within the community or feel accepted without while actually protecting them?
first off, I will accept them as my kid. And I accept their identity that they are gay. And from what you have talked about earlier, I think it all comes to a point that if you are going to influence your kid in a good way, instead of like spreading hate, but inculcating kindness, acceptance, love in their hearts and in their minds, especially respect. If you teach them respect more than limiting just because of the possible reasons that you've said.
Okay, time is up.
Again, by rejecting, I don't really mean I'm hating on the child or really rejecting everything that they are as a person.
Okay. Mr. Phoebe, for your last round, you have 3 minutes.
That's one second. Going back, safety again, as I've said multiple times already, the safety of the child is within The safety of the child within the community is a top concern not only for me but as well as many parents. As from what I've seen and experienced, the community isn't a place for children and should be taken seriously instead of, oh, I'm suddenly gay, or oh, I'm suddenly into women or the same gender as me. And with the addition of certain fetishes trying to be part of the community, such as zoophilia and minor attracted persons, define wait as part of the community, it really is a concern about the children that can be involved in such groups that can be influenced or even groomed just because of these certain types of people that they count themselves as part of the LGBT community, but morally they are wrong and should be put in jail or even hell or worse.
But I do have a question though.
Hmm.
When it comes to the thing that you're calling morally, do you believe that even back in the Bible, there are already gays and we call them the eunuchs, and that gay people, they already exist, but God did not judge them. Instead of like directly saying that you are a gay person, you deserve hell, you should change. Instead, he spread love, unity, and kindness, because that's the fruits of the spirit. You are aware of that, right? So right now I am also asking if you do believe in that, because I think when you're talking about morally wrong, when it comes to different religions, or even when it comes to us as humans, it is already stated even in Judaism and Islam, love is above law. So what do you think about that? What can you say about that?
Morally wrong. What I mean by that is, of course, let's say a 25-year-old being attracted to a 10-year-old. Of course, that is morally wrong. But again, they see themselves as part of community, aka MAPS, which is recently have reached controversy within the community of the LGBT. They are still trying to be part of the community despite all the backlash, and yet they still persist. So if love rules all, does that mean a 25-year-old loving a
Time is up.
10-year-old?
First off, it is not their responsibility, and at the same time, the mistakes that your future, let's just say your future kid had committed, it's not just their mistake alone, because you know your responsibility. And when we're talking about, protecting your own kid, let me ask you this. How are you going to protect your own kid? Because you've said that you are not hating on your kid, right? But let's just say, for example, this is just an example. Don't get me wrong. Let's just say you have a gay son, but then, yeah, he turned out perfectly straight because you protected him. But then it turns out that still the gay son got sexually abused. So, what do you think about that? What can you say about that? Do you still think that it's really about being a lesbian? It's really about being gay? Or it's just that it's because of the personal trauma that you had? That's a different story though, but I want to hear your answer.
For me, really, being sexually abused isn't really about your gender, but rather with how you. I don't want people to get the wrong idea in this one, as of course, sexual assault can happen to anyone, whether they are women, a guy, or anyone really. Even I have been sexually assaulted. So, I would protect my child by, from what I see, like again, from what I see, I would make them
Okay,
avoid.
time is up.
Thank you for that answer. Well, yes, since it's our choice to protect, so I think the issue here is not the
Okay,
sexual
time is up
orientation.
for cross-examination. So maraming salamat sa inyong dalawa. Actually, I have a few questions prepared for the both of you. Pero bago yan, pwede magkamayin muna kayo.
Kinakabahan ako.
It's okay. Hindi naman kayo nagkakapikunan.
Hindi
No.
naman.
Okay, very good. Bago ako mag-proceed sa mga questions ko, remind ko lang yung viewers natin na wala tayong pinopromote or ini-endorse na kahit anong religious beliefs sa ating programa. So kung meron man tayong mababanggit ngayon sa ating mga katanungan, ay dahil lamang may kinalaman ito sa ating mga panauhin. Okay, so ang una kong tanong ay para kay Miss Kate. Okay. So I find it interesting that, as far as I know you, you support becoming an LGBTQ plus community, a member of the LGBTQ plus community, but at the same time, you are also a believer of in Christian doctrines, correct? So I assume then that you are also a believer of the Bible. Okay. So my question is, how do you reconcile for us, or how do you balance your faith with your acceptance or support for something that traditional interpretations of the Bible consider sinful?
First off, my number one answer is humanity. And it also aligns with my personal relationship with God.
Okay.
And it's already stated there. Like if you're going to study the Bible, someone who, does her devotion every day and every night when it comes to making my relationship stronger towards God. Well, it is already written there that even before you were formed or even before you came out of your mother's womb, God already knew you. So there's really nothing wrong whether you came out as gay or a lesbian. And I think it's just that we as a human being and we have this, rational or logical mind, we interpret it in a different way. But it's already written there clearly that even before you were formed, God already knew you. And no one, or not ever, a single creature in this world has the right to judge whether you'll be put in hell or heaven because only God can do that. And I think when it comes to, focusing or existing as a human being, it's really about building your own relationship with God. It's not focusing on the other people building their own relationship with God because it's not about that. Because we are also aware that even when it comes to our salvation, we create our own salvation. And I think that's it. Yeah, that's really it.
Since you are in favor of
Yes.
becoming, or not really in favor, but you are in favor of accepting someone who decides to become a member of the LGBTQ plus community. And if your son openly admits he is a part of this community, would you really accept him as he is, or would you consider it your responsibility as a Christian parent to quote unquote rectify or redirect him?
First off, I was raised by an alpha female. That's my grandmother. So she raised me ever since I was in kindergarten up until I graduated. And mind you, she is really religious. And I grew up in an old Roman Catholic household. But instead of you know, giving me these instructions on how to live my life, she inculcated in my heart and in my mind the fruits of the spirit. The fruits of the spirit that are in the Bible is actually love, acceptance, humility, patience, harmony, and gentleness. Because she taught me that out of all the commandments in the Bible, which she proved right because I read the Bible as well as a Christian, that love is above law, that those commandments, that what matters most, if you are going to summarize all of this, these were made out of love and these were made for love. And I think that's it. That's my answer.
Okay, ngayon diretsahang tanong.
Yes.
Okay? Yung mga tao, para sa'yo, yung mga tao na nagsasabi na yung Bible daw is against homosexuality, naniniwala ka na mali yung interpretation nila sa Bible?
I don't judge them, but I have my own interpretation. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. But when it comes to my child is my child, and their child is their child. So I think that's just it.
Okay, I'm getting the point. Now, another point that you mentioned sa mga arguments mo kanina is the concept or the idea of quote-unquote unconditional love.
Yes.
Correct. Okay, so especially within family, but others But others argue that true love also corrects what it believes is wrong. So do you believe that unconditional love includes accepting identities that conflict with your faith or beliefs or principles? Or does loving someone mean guiding them away from what you believe is sin?
It's not guiding them away, it's guiding them in the right way. So when it comes to that, of course, it's their responsibility. And, I think, of course, I'm not going to also dictate on how they are going to discipline their own children. But the thing here is, if you're going to ask me about my kid, of course, that's a different story. And the path that my child is going to take is the path that I'm going to let them take. But at the same time, of course, as a parent, I am going to correct them. But let's just say, for example, I just want to add this, especially Mr. PB had expressed earlier, which I actually accepted and I understood wholeheartedly. But the thing here is, when it comes to protecting your kid, the world is not going to adjust. The world is already cruel. So if you are going to like inculcate into the mind of the kid that there's really something wrong with these people just by not accepting them, then you're already like saying that there's really something wrong about it, right? And I think having this as as a starting point of like thinking of yourself, or having the role as a parent, I think it is going to be the possible route of the path that what your child is going to be, because it is going to play as a major role of what they are going to become. So if you're going to accept them, or if you're going to, let's just say, correct them. But the thing here is, if you're going to correct them, it's still making them low-key feel that there's something wrong with them. So instead of like, let's just say, for example, you making them understand your point as a parent, why not also understand your child's, of course, your child's point as well, or why your child, or let's just say, for example, when they finally turned 18, or they really know that they are gay, and that they have provided all the explanations that you needed, and that's something that you could not deny. Let's just say, for example, of course, instead of like, you know, denying, instead of like correcting them, you try to listen to them first, and at the same time try to build the trust first. Why not like give each other a shot to understand each other? Like, take time. I think that's just it.
Okay. Honest question. I need an honest answer. Okay.
Let's go.
Would you be happier, or would you prefer a straight child or a gay child?
I prefer only one. I prefer a gay child,
Why?
because the word itself already answers the question. Gay is happiness. Gay is joy. That's it.
I'm pertaining to homosexual child.
Still the same answer.
Okay. Last question. Okay,
Let's
since
go.
I've mentioned a while ago na ang traditional interpretation sa scriptures or sa Bible is that being a member of the LGBTQ plus community is a sin, correct? So if your support for your son or for your child leads to a backlash from your community, are you prepared to face that?
Of course, I have already faced a lot of circumstances in my life, but protecting my kid is 100% of my responsibility, and it's my desire. Because even though I've had sexual abuses and I've never really liked men, honestly, but of course, I'm not referring that all men are just equal, that they're bad or anything. But the thing here is, I still want to become a mother. That's it. And I want to play the role of a mother. So having a child, let's just say, for example, if they're gay, or just part of the LGBTQ community, of course, it's my responsibility to protect them. How am I going to protect them first? Of course, if you're all curious, how am I going to protect them? Since it is not the world's responsibility and we cannot control the world. The thing here is, first, the kid must know how to express themselves. Especially when it comes to defending themselves. How are they going to defend themselves? The bullying, the discrimination, the segregation by the society or even in school or in the offices. So you teach them how to fight for themselves. You teach them how to connect with the authorities, especially when it has something to do with different forms of abuses. Because if you give them that power, if you give them that strength, that there's nothing wrong and that there's nothing to be scared of when it comes to, speaking up about what happened, then this kid is going to be all right. This kid is going to be all right because you have already taught them the things that they needed to do. And as a parent, I think that those are the things that we should focus more because we are being realistic here. We are being realistic here. When it comes to disrespect is a choice. If you're a female, if you're a male, if you're part of the spectrum, whether you're gay, you're a lesbian, you're a queer, you're a transgender, or just part of the LGBTQ community or the straight community, disrespect is a choice and respect is earned. So, in terms of being disrespected, of course, as a mother, I am going to teach the child how to respect. If you don't want to get disrespected, or even if you get disrespected, still, you respect people. Because if you do not want others to do this to you, which is also biblically, you do not do that to them. That's just it. That is the human law and at the same time the divine law. Because honestly, the divine law, the human law, it starts at home. It really starts at home. But the thing here is, it's just that we as parents, we overthink too much about what is going to happen if we send the child into, if we send the child in this world and that they're unprepared. But the thing here is, that's the thing. It's your role. You prepare them, but at the same time, please, their story is their story to make. The thing that they only need is the support, the guidance, how they are going to survive, but at the same time, not feeling like they're just surviving this world, but at the same time living because survival is different from life, right? Surviving is about struggling, but living is about enjoying, though still struggling, but it's about focusing on the brighter side. I think that's it.
Okay, I have a question
Go.
for the both of you. Ngayon na to nag-arise. Do you guys think that it is not yet the best time to come out as an LGBTQ plus community member? Do you think it is not yet the perfect generation for that?
No.
How about
Within
you?
this generation, no, it really isn't.
Care to expound your answer?
Come again?
Do you want to
I
expound your answer?
I think I got confused when it comes to the question.
Yeah, what I'm trying to say is that do you think our generation is ready to accept or embrace those members
alright.
of? Do you get my question?
So
Yeah, I got it.
I got it. Well, yes, because it is a choice. Again, the world is not going to adjust for your kid. But at the same time, your kid, they are going to define themselves. It's not the world that's going to redefine them because it's how they present them. And at the same time, it's how you influence them to become as a person. And if you influence them into becoming the best versions of themselves, and also when it comes to, carrying themselves as who and what they truly are, I think that will impact on how they are going to live their lives. Because, it's really not about the comments of the society. Because the judgments, it's already there. You're being judged. Like, even though you're a straight person, physically, inwardly, outwardly, small things that you committed, you are already being judged. Even though you are straight, you still get these abuses. Even though you're part of the LGBTQ community, you still, you cannot avoid those forms of abuses. So I think it's not about being ready. So why do I think so? It's not about being ready because time is precious. So when are you going to show to the real world who you are and what you truly are, just because you are waiting for the world to be prepared, for the world to accept you as a person or your kid as a gay. So it's really not about the world, because in the first place, the world, it is not going to adjust. But it is you who write your own story. It is you who write your own timeline. So I think whether the world is not unprepared, well, I don't care, because it shouldn't be like that. Because the world has its own life, and the life has its own time. So does your kid, and so does me. So I think that's it.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Phoebe, do you still believe that LGBTQ plus people are still being ostracized by the society?
Can you define ostracize?
Meaning they are still being discriminated.
Yes, I believe they are still being discriminated by, even by today. Despite how accepting people are of the LGBT community, many people are still getting, let's say, discriminated. I was discriminated. I can tell she was also discriminated. Many others have been discriminated, not just because of their gender identity, but because of their personality and how they present themselves. And it's not really up to us or even society to, let's say, conform to, ano, it's it's not really it's not really the person's fault for not being accepted or being discriminated, but rather it's society's fault. Of course, we cannot change society one person at a time. We must all make an effort to change society altogether. Of course, you cannot clean the world if only one person does it. We need everyone to clean the world. We need everyone to change their views on a certain point of view. Yeah.
Okay, before I proceed to the follow-up question, you've mentioned that you wouldn't accept your son if it turns out that he's a member of the LGBTQ plus community. Can you explain what not accepting looks like? Does it mean you're gonna cut him off, or you're gonna change him, or something else?
For me, not accepting, I will define not accepting as disowning the child entirely, not giving them attention, not showing lack of support, not talking to the child entirely. By not supporting them, you literally disown them. But in my point of acceptance or rejection, I wouldn't literally reject the child, but rather give them time to process what they want to do and what they want to be. And that's it, really.
Can you give us a more clear picture of how that parenting looks like?
That's As we know from today's social Filipino culture, once a father sees a child being gay, they would already discriminate or even hate on that. But to show an example, let's say, it's really hard to ano eh, yun lang.
Okay, let's put it this way. If you reject your child, or the way he or she perceives himself or herself, hindi ba't katulad ka na rin ng mga taong sabi mo nga nagdi-discriminate dun sa anak mo?
Right, that I get. Not really. I'm not really the same as them because they have other reasons to discriminate. Meanwhile, me, I discriminate morely for the safety of my child. I'm not discriminating them as a person, but rather what they perceive to be at that certain age. Once they reach a certain age or at a certain point of maturity or responsibility, that's the time I will respect them and accept them for their choice.
Okay, sige. For the sake of argument, no. Suppose your son told you na, "Dad, I'm a gay." What are you gonna tell him? Don't be a gay. Don't be gay.
No, I will not blatantly tell them to not be gay, but rather I would tell them if they have thought it through, if they think they are ready to hold that responsibility of being a gay person, if they are ready to face discrimination, not just by being gay, but from other judgments of society. Because even me, I have been judged for my choice of being as you can see, I'm a cross-dresser, so yeah. But from my experience, I don't think a child, let's say a 16-year-old, wouldn't be ready to face the discrimination that they would face if they are openly gay or whatever they choose to be.
Okay, can you be more specific? So, if that's the case, what are the things that you would not allow your child to do?
For me, really, I would not allow them to openly come out as them. I would not let them openly say they are gay to other people, not just because I do not accept them, but rather for their own safety. As of course, with today's society, they will be discriminated either way. And that's it, really.
Okay, sige. Before we run out of time, may tanong ulit ako sa inyong dalawa. If in the future, marinig ng mga future children ninyo itong podcast na ito, ano yung gusto nyong iparating sa kanilang mensahe? You first.
First off, I think this is going to be emotional because I just also revealed unexpectedly, I think this year, that I lost a child. And that was due to rape. And that my family didn't know about that. And if this message is going to be viewed or be watched by my own child that's in heaven, and at the same time by my kid that's in the future, who I am going to call as Lily, if it's a girl, but let's just say, for example, she is going to turn out to be just like her mother, a lesbian, I just want you to know that I love you, and whatever you want to become in life, I support you. The love that I have for you is something that is unbreakable, that this world cannot really take away from me and take away from you. Because knowing me as a child, I never really had that love. Though did I did understand that our parents, they are not that perfect. But as a parent, I want to be that mother that my kid would be the first one to run to when they have their problems, especially when it comes to their existential crisis. Because, you know, before coming out as a lesbian, Lily, if you're listening, I also had my struggles when it comes to my faith, and at the same time, my identity as a lesbian. But instead of that, I was loved by my grandmother, that's your great grandmother, and I am passing that love on you because that made me as a good person. That made me as a good person. And at the same time, I never, I never failed in life just because of this unrealistic views of, the society, or sometimes the overthinking that I had. Because I also, cannot stop from overthinking that what if I'll have a kid and then she's going to ask where is her dad, or where or which one of us, her mom and her mama, is the dad. So of course, knowing the society's judgments, I am going to make my kid feel that those judgments are irrelevant. You know why? Because through my love, the love that I am going to inject that child will define the judgments that she's going to have in the future. That's really my main focus. And I just want to let you know that whatever path that you have, I support you. I really support you because I am your mother. And as your mother, at the same time, I am your best friend as well. And as a mother, I want her to feel like I am I am the safest place that she's going to, you know, to run to whenever she feels like she's being judged by the society, and that my arms would be enough for her to feel the warmth of the love of this world, even though the cruelty of this world, is undeniably affecting her in some ways. I think that's just it when it comes to my message to Lily, and I love you so much. I love you in ways, in numbers, in words that this world couldn't define and couldn't measure. I think that's it.
How about you?
To my future child, for one thing, I know I wouldn't be a very good parent. But just know, whatever you come out to be, you would still be my son or my daughter, whether you were part of the LGBT or not. I would still call you my son. I would still call you my daughter. And of course, I was not raised in a perfect family. Not everyone was raised in a perfect family. But I know for one thing, I know what my child would want, and I know that my child would want what I would want as well as a parent. And I know what my child would deserve. And for one thing, I know my child would deserve all the love, care, and protection that he would need that my own family didn't give me. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Alright, maraming salamat sa inyong dalawa. At bago natin tapusin itong ating episode sa ating mga viewers, kung meron kayong kakilala o kamag-anak na sa pananaw ninyo, sa opinion ninyo, ay mayroong mali sa kanilang pagkatao, anong gagawin ninyo? Tatanggapin nyo ba sila? Pipilitin nyo ba sila na magbago? O irerespeto ninyo kung ano man yung kanilang naging desisyon sa sarili nilang mga buhay? Muli, ako po si Armando Bibay at ito po ang Unbiased.